So here's the Wikipedia page, or the section of Wikipedia page for Train Sim World 3, released on the 6th of September 2022 to replace Train Sim World 2. I had the sense that this was very short-lived because I got Train Sim World 4 before I ever tried Train Sim World 3, but really what it was is I got it relatively late in its support period, and I just had a lot going on in my life at the time, so I wasn't able to try it out, but I knew I would want it. So once it went on sale, I got it. Partly explains why I got it so late. And what else was new other than it being the latest version? Well, it included 3 new routes. The Schnellfahrstrecke, meaning high-speed route or high-speed line, Kassel-Wurzburg in Germany on Deutsche Bahn. As they put it, an extended version of the southeastern high-speed route, which really means the Channel Tunnel rail link. And the main reason I guess they consider that extended is that it has a branch to Dartford and, in general, a lot of extra stuff to make it more interesting. And then they have Cajon Pass, which is one of the best-known sections of mainline in the United States. It's mostly associated with Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, but obviously today that would be Burlington North and Santa Fe. It also was used by Southern Pacific and now Union Pacific. And so that's a great route. I'd really like to do a playthrough of it, except it's really too long. I tried doing a dry run and it took me 2 hours, 40 minutes, and I figured that's too much. That's just ridiculous. It's great fun, but not really for a video. So I decided I'm going to do the so-called Southeastern High-Speed or Channel Tunnel Rail Link route. But I'm not even going to do all of that because I don't want to do that long a video about it either, even though I really like it. I'll probably do St. Pancras to Ebbsfleet rather than St. Pancras to Ashford or vice versa. Anyway, what else is there? Well, they have a bunch of other DLCs, Birmingham Cross City, like in Both of You Driver, for example. So, a more modern take on that, although it's kind of hard to beat Both of You Driver, actually. Or OpenBVE. Especially OpenBVE. OpenBVE is really nice. Really, I think it's technically Both of You Express, but a lot of people call it Both of You Driver. Anyway. Then they have a recreation of the Excella Express. I don't actually have that. I would like to get it, though. I do have the ALP 46 from New Jersey Transit, the Metroliner cab car, although not the Metroliner. And yeah, so I got a bunch of this stuff. I'm not sure what else there is to say about this. If we jump on the Steam page, we get a little bit more information. So they have some DLCs here. Some of the DLCs are actually cross-compatible with Train Sim World 2, and this also carries on the tradition of including whatever older DLCs or parts of older versions of Train Sim World you own into whatever the new update is. So this install of Train Sim World that I have actually includes all the stuff from Train Sim World 2 and Train Sim World 2020 that I have. So if I wanted to drive the Bakerloo line in Train Sim World 3, there would be no technical obstacle to that at all. So I'm not sure what else there is to say. Let's see what else they got here. They're correct that the graphics are beautiful. It looks just as good as this in the game. So the weather is also exceptionally good. It's not just that the weather looks good in the air, but when your windows ice up, it's very, very realistic, actually. That barely does it justice there, but it looks very, very real. And let's see what else they have here. Yeah. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention this too. Your passengers and the non-playable characters change clothes in bad weather, so they put on coats and they carry umbrellas. Another thing I noticed is the type of weather you get depends on what month you're playing in. So it normally loads whatever the real life month and date is, and then you can change it if you want. So right now, I'm getting a lot of snow in my scenarios because it's December. And they're mentioning the cross-compatibility of Train Sim World and Train Sim 3. Train Sim World 3. Actually, I should also mention you get a certain amount of reliability improvement in this version of Train Sim World. In Train Sim World 2, there were a lot of bugs in the AI that caused trains not driven by you to be stranded somewhere because the AI glitched out, and then the line would get blocked and you wouldn't be able to complete the scenario. I haven't seen that yet in Train Sim World 3, and I, at this point, have probably played more hours of it. So, yeah, that's worth mentioning also. It is a better debugged game than Train Sim World 2. I guess maybe now I should jump into the game. Oh, there's the splash screen. You have two of them for some reason. I like to call this the Beavis and Butthead clause because they're basically covering themselves for liability. The game is actually very realistic, if you can even call it a game. When they're trying to say that this is basically not an accurate simulator, that's what they're insinuating. That is just because they don't want Beavis and Butthead going and trespassing on railway property and wrecking everything and so on. But, of course, another example of why games can be fun is that you can behave like Beavis and Butthead in a game if you want to. But I haven't done that with this yet. I haven't even determined how hard it is to really screw things up in Train Sim World, actually. Anyway, I'm going to click any key, press any key, and we get another splash screen. I haven't driven the ICE one in Train Sim World, any version of Train Sim World just yet. Might be cool to try eventually. So this is the main menu. This is a lot like Train Sim World 2. So you can resume the last thing you were working on, or you can go to the trains, which is really the scheduled services. That's really what this is. We go to choose a route. You see if we choose Southeastern High Speed, for example, you can play a scenario, you can just run a scheduled service, and then they have the training modules, which I've completed. And we go back again. I'm not sure what the point of this is. I haven't even tried this yet. Let's see. Nope. Nothing much to see here at all, actually. Just another variation. Quick play. Let's see what this is about. I really have not gone into these in depth. I mean, you could say this would have been a better playthrough attempt, but I don't really want to do it this way. Rail journeys. If I go here, nah, I'm not interested in this. I'm more interested in just doing a scheduled service. But one thing I do want to show before I start, one of my favorite new features of Train Sim World is the training center. This isn't really new. They also have it in Train Simulator Classic, or Dovetail Train Simulator Classic as well. But this is the most developed version I've ever seen of it. So it has all the features that you would have in a scenario, except it's very customizable. And you can walk all around the whole facility, the sidings, the test tracks, the parkland around it, which is very extensive. It's way overbuilt, if anything. With all these little bus shelters around it, also makes it look like you can get on the bus somewhere, although I haven't seen that yet. Then there's this basically school building. It isn't actually functional, unfortunately. So you have the classroom there, but you can't attend class, which is a shame. Maybe in some future version they'll come up with something like that. And there are all these offices, but you can't really use them because the doors don't open. Basically, the building is a very elaborate decoration, unfortunately. It would be cool if they could have done something with this building. More generally, the maps are much more interactive than in Train Sim World 2, so you can sit in pretty much any chair, although not, strangely, in this building. You even have a receptionist here, and the receptionist doesn't respond to you. Those storage rooms are not useful for anything either. See, if you try to click on the receptionist doesn't say anything or do anything. So we have all these couches up here and armchairs, and that office in there. Again, these are not usable, even though many things in the game are, basically just for the fun of it. Get a nice view of the trains there. They make the facility look like it's in Europe somewhere, but the trains are from all over. These are basically the trains that come with the built-in routes. So we have the British Rail Class 66 for English, Welsh, and Scottish. We have the ES44 from BNSF. GEES 44C4 specifically. Another Class 66 there, that's your trainer. If I'm not mistaken, they've inherited this one from Train Sim Classic. Then a 465 Third Rail EMU there. Originally from British Rail, but now painted up for Southeast. Then they have a Deutsche Bahn Class 185 electric. My favorite American locomotive in this version of Train Sim World is probably this SD40-2, which you can also get in CSX livery, in CSX configuration too. But here they only have the BNSF one, because the CSX one is from the Sand Patch, going all the way back to CSX Heavy Haul 2017. There's the Hitachi Javelin from the Southeast High Speed. And then we have an engine shed, which you unfortunately can't use. That red circle there around the pointer warns me that I'm on the track, which is a new educational feature to remind people, don't walk on the track. That is a Class 375 EMU, which has third rail capability, but which is billed as overhead, also for the Southeast set. And what else have we got here? It says Southeastern on it, but you get the point. The Southeast High Speed has more than just the Javelin with it. It's a very, very nice set of routes and equipment. And I've barely scratched the surface of it so far. Obviously, this is the ICE3, which is, at this point, is much more retro than it looks, actually. This is a design that's, at this point, over 20 years old. But it's still awfully nice. I haven't tried it in Train Sim World 3 yet, but I'm sure it's great. And there are a few other trains hidden away in the yard, too. There's at least one ICE-1 in there, for example. This is the interior of the Javelin. This is the one I'm going to be driving in the playthrough. All of the controls are simulated. You can see the fog has moved in out there. In reality, I jumped here a little bit in the video, so it doesn't form that fast. It is more realistic than that, actually. So every one of these buttons works. This is actually better than Microsoft Flight Simulator, because only a few of the planes in Microsoft Flight Simulator are fully modeled, but most of the trains in Train Sim World, most of this works. Like all the little bits and pieces, it's very, very nice. You can also sit in the seats, as I mentioned earlier, and be a passenger. Although most of the scenarios involve you driving. The bathrooms don't open. That's a carryover from Train Sim World 2. They have not modeled the bathrooms. The only reason for that would be to be humorous, I would imagine. But you can walk the whole train opening all these doors with realistic sound. The only part of the sound in Train Sim World 3 that I don't like is the sound of your feet, which sounds an awful lot like Late for Tap Class in Puma Man. But other than that, the sound is at least as impressive as the graphics, if not more so. There's the other cab, which probably would be the better one to use if you were going to take this one out on the test track. So what else have we got here? Back to the main menu? Yeah. Okay, let's finally do a run here. Here I'm just going to choose a route, go to the southeastern high speed, select the Hitachi Javelin, and these routes are often through routes that go past Ashford in real life. So if I get something to Dover, for example, that's really going to terminate in Train Sim World in Ashford. Let's see what we got here. There's a Dover service at 7:23 in the morning. Should be perfectly okay for our purposes. All of these services are stopping because that's the purpose of the Javelin. Even though the Javelin is a high-speed train, it's designed for local services, not expresses. So I'm got to set up the train here, switch the master key on, switch the reverser into neutral just so that I can open the doors, because that's a peculiarity of the Javelin. Let's take a look. Yes, the doors are open. We already have some passengers aboard in St. Pancras. And let's see what else I need. I probably need heat because this is wintertime and I need the lights on in night mode. Let's get the heat set up here. Reading light just means light on the switches right there, which I need for the tunnels. And so 1 minute to departure. I have to check everything. The speedometer there is that red digital one, and it's actually in kilometers per hour, crazily enough. The cab signaling system is also unlike anything else in Britain. If I understand correctly, it's actually what the French TGVs use, because the Channel Tunnel Rail Link is basically based on LGV, meaning TGV line technology. Looks like everything's more or less ready to go here. So if we close the doors, Hit that little alerter there that tells people the train's about to move. Passengers, that means. Then I use the unified control to take the brakes off. And I get it moving in the right direction here and apply power. And the Javelin only has 4 full notches, strangely enough, even though there are part notches, halfway ones. The acceleration is okay, but I've seen better, actually. There are a lot of really heavy grades on this route, and even though the Javelin's an EMU, it actually struggles a little bit. It will go very fast, but getting it up to the full 140 miles an hour or 225 kilometers per hour is a little bit of a challenge, actually. When you drive this route, you don't necessarily end up spending too much time at 225 kilometers per hour. I have the HUD speedometer still set to Imperial there because this is a British route. But the Channel Tunnel Rail Link, at least in this simulation, is metric. Also, if you look at the HUD at the top there, giving us our next station, it says Stratford International. Stratford is also a stop on the Great Eastern going out to Norwich, actually. But for our purposes here, it is a southeast high-speed stop. The horn because we're going into a tunnel. There's actually a lot of high-speed running in these tunnels under London. Or some of the tunnels actually are above ground, but they're trying to keep the noise down. So now we have at least got a 200 kilometer per hour speed limit, so we can speed up. We'll be at Stratford pretty quickly, though. This time that I encoded the video, it didn't make everything choppy. Everything ran very smoothly on this playthrough, for the most part. So now the train is up over 160k. At this point, we're hitting 110 miles per hour. But we're not going to be able to highball like this for very long because you can see the cab signal is already flashing. In this cab signaling system, when it flashes, it means the next indication is going to be slower than the current one. But I have to slow down and stop at Stratford anyway, so it doesn't really place me at any disadvantage. I've had surprisingly good luck running these trains to time, even with all the undulating gradients and difficulty in getting the trains to really perform. Even though I've had to pay attention, I have been able to run to time with these. And actually, I really like this route. I would really like to experiment with it more, but probably with a newer version of Train Sim World. Just because I don't want to have a whole bunch of different versions from different time periods on my computer. I'd rather just have Train Sim World 5. So I'll see if Train Sim World 5 will actually run this. But we're not talking about Train Sim World 5 right now. We're talking about Train Sim World 3. And as you can see, it's pretty nice. And it might be less of a system hog on your computer. That's maybe why Dovetail are still at least selling it on Steam. So now the cab signal is telling us to slow down to 80 kilometers per hour, or around 50 miles an hour. That's just because we're going into a station. Unfortunately, this tunnel is also hiding the quality of the graphics, because that instrument panel is perfectly acceptable but not amazing. However, the scenery on the Channel Tunnel Rail Link in Train Sim World 3 is actually pretty attractive. It'd be nice to see more of it in a bit. Also, of course, dawn will come shortly, because it's 7:30 in the morning. Alright, so here we are at Stratford International. And my train has to take its track and stop in the platform. I'm still relearning how to brake. That ghosted stripe there with the color helps this a great deal if you're unfamiliar with any of these routes. On the one hand, it's kind of cheating, but on the other hand, it enables you to learn more routes in less time. And if you're only a hobbyist who's messing around with Train Sim World, that's actually pretty good. It's a welcome luxury, shall we say. And now I have to open the doors. And load the next set of passengers for Ebbsfleet. Eurostar doesn't actually run the line quite like this. When Ebbsfleet was built in 2007, there was a lot of controversy over reduced Eurostar services into Ashford. But in reality, neither of these stations was really supposed to be as important as St. Pancras. Really, Eurostar was supposed to be the express service all the way into France, or Belgium for that matter. The Javelin was originally developed so that this line could be run as a very fast regional service. Maybe local service is the wrong word, but regional in the county of Kent. Although we're not quite in Kent yet, we're still in Stratford. Stratford's just a commuter station inside London, so it's even less significant than Ebbsfleet or Stratford. But as we head out, now we're getting decent acceleration, but that's because if you look over at the little grade HUD over there on the right, another one of the cheats they give you, we're flat. So we don't have to deal with a grade right here. We can just punch it and see what happens. Now the speed limit just went up to 225 kilometers per hour, so now we can highball properly until Ebbsfleet. The line from Ebbsfleet to Stratford is actually a lot of fun. I should be very clear. Of course, in this playthrough I'm only going to go as far as Ebbsfleet, but the main reason for that is that the line from Ebbsfleet to Stratford is the longest section of the Channel Tunnel Rail Link that Train Sim World 3 includes, and it just takes too much time. But it's fun to drive, because you get to drive very fast for a relatively long period of time. I'm considering getting a Eurostar DLC if there's one available. because it would still be fun to run this at the full 300 kilometers per hour. In that case, it would be a realistic scenario to run a scheduled Eurostar service from St. Pancras to Ashford. At least it would be realistic pre-COVID, because since COVID they haven't really been using Ebbsfleet and Stratford much at all. But that would be a nice fast run, and because of the speed it would be practical for a playthrough, actually. I would like to do that at some point. I think the very first time I ever went on the Eurostar we stopped in Ashford, in fact. In those days they didn't have any Channel Tunnel rail link at all. On the British side it was all the old Southeastern Railway with the third rail electrification. So it was actually very slow going until we got into the Channel and into France. Even the Channel was only 160 kilometers per hour at the time, so we didn't really pick it up until we got into France. You can see a little bit of super elevation there, just a tad. Train Sim World has simulated super elevated track very well, I think. It's really a simulator which has a great deal of attention given to detail. So here we are, finally above ground. The sun is coming up. We're highballing right along here, 134 miles an hour, 216 kilometers per hour. And the only reason we're not going faster is the grades here. Although we're flat at the moment. This particular little spot here we're flat, and you notice the train is creeping up slowly. I'm still not blown away by its power, but it is able to do 140 miles an hour or 225 kilometers per hour. See other adjacent lines for other purposes here. There are many places where you can see the Southeastern and other local lines from the Channel Tunnel rail link, and that's not entirely unintentional, because at night they'll sometimes run freights on it, and just because the Channel Tunnel rail link is here doesn't mean the rest of the rail network isn't. I don't know if you could say really good time, but it is going pretty fast. A little laggy at this moment here, though. A lot of that's my sloppy driving, if I'm being honest. So we're continuing to zoom along here. The lighting in Train Sim World has always been very nice, and it continues to improve. This is at least attractive dawn lighting. Whether it's really accurate for England is debatable, but I remember when I lived in England, the sky could often be very colorful, actually. We hit 140 miles an hour again before having to ease off. Once a Javelin is at 140 miles an hour, it doesn't have too much difficulty going beyond that, but the problem is the equipment is not rated for that. So even on a line like this one, which generally has a speed limit over 140 miles an hour, the equipment speed limit is still 225 kilometers per hour. So 3.5 miles to Ebbsfleet. I have to bring my speed down here. Not just for the lower speed limit, but because I have to make that final stop. Final stop, at least, for this playthrough. Another tunnel. Now we're going maybe a little bit too slow. It's always a judgment call if you're coming up to a stop, if you want a smooth deceleration. I largely stopped the trains in these preparations, training for this the lazy way by slowing it down to 20 miles an hour, even less, by the time I reached the platform, and then stabbing at the end, much the way I did the Bakerloo line playthrough for Train Sim World 2, because I'm just not very well practiced at the moment. Although I surprised myself with my skill level on these runs. I'm not actually as rusty this time as I was when I did Train Sim World 2020 and Train Sim World 2. And I don't actually know why. I haven't done a huge amount of train simulation lately. It might be because I enjoyed experimenting with Train Sim World 3 so much that it made me pay closer attention to what I was doing than maybe other cases. But I mean, in fairness, when I did Train Sim World 2, I was absolutely blown away by it. So it wouldn't be accurate to say I was bored when I did Train Sim World 2, because that was a great game. Still is, but there are newer versions of Train Sim World now, which, at least in theory, are even more spectacular. Train Sim World 3 is certainly an incremental improvement. I do like it, but I'm looking forward to all the other stuff that's accumulated in my collection since that Train Sim World 2 playthrough. I'd really like to do more of this. Forgot how much fun it was. Okay, so here we're pulling into Ebbsfleet, and I gotta open the doors again. And I'm not really sure what else to say. I love this game just as I loved Train Sim World 2, and I can hardly wait to try Train Sim World 4. People getting off. I think they've improved the modeling of the people. That's one more significant change. It's not just the coats and the umbrellas. Alright. What else is there here? I did notice that that telephone actually works. You can actually call the signalman with it. But I don't have any reason to do that right now. Okay, they're telling us wait. I won't wait. I think I'll finish. So, thanks for watching. I'm really looking forward to the next playthrough when I do Train Sim World 4.